Well, now that we've got our car paint material in there, let's go ahead and get a backdrop and an HDR dome into our scene so that we can then better see the rest of our materials as they start to come together. We'll be able to see our reflections and things like that much better using our HDR dome. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to be using Final Gather at the end of this training to actually render this and to optimize the results based on the rays that are cast. I'm going to go ahead and scale this card down just a little bit. So we'll go ahead and scale it down to something like that. So the rays don't have quite so far to go. And I'll go ahead and create our HDR dome. So I'm just going to bring in a polygon sphere. And I'm going to scale it up to something like 30, 32, something like that. You want it to sort of encompass your entire model there. I'm also going to bring in the floor plane just by bringing in a polygon primitive plane and scale this up. And we're going to be doing a render from maybe from this angle. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around so we've got a nice flat plane behind us. All right, and now we need to add some materials. All right, so let's go ahead and go into our hypershade. For the floor, I'm going to add a simple Lambert. So I'll bring in a Lambert, give it a more of a white value, and assign that. For the backdrop, for the dome itself, I want to use a surface shader. And that's just a flat shader with no shading information. You can see here the difference. So I'll go ahead and assign that. And now to the shader, into the color, I'm going to map the HDR image that we'll provide to you. You can find this in your source images directory under the Maya project here. And it's called Light Dome. Go ahead and open that up. And this file is going to contain basically kind of a light panel setup, studio lighting setup. And you can get reflections from this type of an image file. You can get lighting information. It contains a lot of different exposure information. So sort of a lot more detail and information than a normal image file. So we can use this to create reflections and actual lighting on our model. Now, initially, we're just going to visualize this with by seeing the reflections it creates, not necessarily the lighting. So I'm going to make sure that my default light is on. I'm not going to check Final Gather quite yet. I just want to kind of preview this. So now let's go ahead and take a render and see what this looks like. So while this renders up, you can see here as we come in that you'll be able to see the reflections here now on our car paint shader. So the shader itself is starting to come alive a little bit. And we're starting to get more detail in there. So that'll help us when we come and do some of these really reflective materials that we have, like the car paint shader and the chrome and things like that. It's going to help us visualize where the reflections are and really add to the realism of what we're doing. Okay, so now that we've got that set up, let's go ahead and in the next lesson come in and add some chrome material to our bright work. Okay, so if you want any more information about HDR images, we have some great training on that. And we actually have a great title called HDR Workflow with Maya and Photoshop, where you can actually create your own HDR images from whatever environment that you're working with. This one is based off kind of a studio setup with some light panels. So feel free to take advantage of that as well. All right, so let's come in the next lesson and work on setting up our chrome materials. So we'll see you then.